Jai Hind everyone. So in this video, we are going to cover the discussion part of ethics paper number 4, and we are going to discuss some of the questions which recently appeared in the question paper. So we'll start with the question. First be, constitutional morality is not a natural sentiment, but a product of civil education and adherence to the rule of law. Now, this is the first part of the question because in many other mains paper, even in, of course, ethics paper number 4, we have seen that UPSC tries to like integrate multiple topics in one question. So if you see this question also, so in first two lines, they're talking about constitutional morality, and they are saying it is not a natural sentiment, but a product of civil education and adherence to rule of law. Rule of law is a separate topic in your syllabus. Now, the second portion will start here. Examine the significance of constitutional morality. Now they are trying to relate this topic with for public servant, highlighting the role of promoting good governance and ensuring accountability. So I have I have kept these terminologies in bold because these are the topics in your ethics syllabus. So constitutional morality is there, good governance is there, and accountability is also there. So usually we follow IBC model when we talk about paper number 1, 2, 3, and in certain cases paper number 4 also, introduction, body and conclusion. Here also you can follow that, but yes, we have to abide by and comply to the things that they are asking. So we can start with constitutional morality. So in the introduction part, we can talk about the constitutional morality. I'll show you in a while, and then we'll try to relate constitutional morality with good governance as well as accountability. And when we talk about ethics, we have to give like examples and relatable examples to fetch more marks. So we'll try to give examples from the life plus the bureaucracy. So if there's a question which is related to bureaucracy, for example, they're talking about good governance and accountability, it means the topic is related to bureaucracy. So we'll try to give the examples from the bureaucracy only. यहाँ पे देखते हैं. So first we can define what constitutional morality is. So it is like constitutional morality means following the values, principles and procedures given in the constitution, because we know liberty, equality, fraternity, these are the constitutional principles which are given in our constitution. So here we can very briefly talk about these values which are mentioned in the constitution, जैसे कि यहाँ पर आप देख रहे हैं. इसके अलावा we can also briefly talk about for public servants why these values are very important. एक चीज हमेशा ध्यान रखिएगा, since we are supposed to write the answer in 150 words, therefore the word limit should be abide by. You have to comply to the word limit. So here you can talk about this, or very briefly you can talk about this, and if you think that you have a lot of material to mention in the body part, then you can constrict your introduction also. You can just talk about constitutional morality and then you can move forward. So we know that for public servants also, all the things which are mentioned in the constitution, whether it is liberty, equality, fraternity, that you should not be biased, these kind of values are very, very important, and hence not only in the constitution but even in the code of conduct, there also these values are mentioned. Right? So for public servants, it acts like a guiding principles. So here it has to be taught, practiced and internalized through civic education and consistent adherence to rule of law. So in the introduction part, you're talking about constitutional morality, why it is important, वो भी हमने बता दिया. Now let's move to key elements of constitutional morality, because अगर हम देखें यहाँ पर, let's come back to the question. यहाँ पर भी they are talking about the same thing in the first part also, but a product of civil education and adherence to rule of law. So it is not a natural sentiment, but it is a product of these two elements. And if you see, इसी चीज की बात हम यहाँ पर करने वाले हैं. So when we talk about constitutional morality, it consists of, or there are certain elements in this, and these elements talk about adherence to rule of law. So here they are saying that when the decisions need to be taken in bureaucracy or otherwise, here you need to keep this element in the mind. So whenever we are taking the decision, आपको याद होगा in the class also when we were covering good governance, there also one of the major elements of the good governance was rule of law. It means here the leader, let's say there is an authoritarian leader, he is going to take all the decision from his whims and fancies. That is something which is not allowed. That is something which should not happen, and therefore यहाँ पर क्या होगा? We can take all, or we should take all the decision through the rule of law. It means we have a book, that is the constitution. Maybe there are laws, bylaws, provisions also. We have to abide by that. We cannot follow our own whims and fancies. Okay? Then other element of constitutional morality is equality before law. It means when you are holding that position, let's say you're a civil servant, or when we are talking about good governance, we know that there should not be any biasness in your decision. There should not be any biasness in your behavior on the basis of caste, on the basis of class, on the basis of gender, or any other parameter. So you need to be as neutral as possible. And then accountability and transparency, they are also part and parcel of constitutional morality, because here accountability here means that you need to be answerable, and transparency comes after this, because when you are holding that position, you need to ensure that all the decisions that you're taking or the way that you are utilizing the money in that public department, that should be in the public domain. So yahan par we can also talk about RTI. Next is respect for the rights. So here we are talking about you need to uphold the fundamental rights of the citizens while performing your duties. So when you're performing your duties, it should not be that you're violating the fundamental rights of the individual. So what you can do in the introduction, you can write about this, and then you can make a diagram of this as well, because you cannot write everything in the answer. You have to give the answer in 150 words. Yes, we are discussing everything which can be written down in the question, but that does not mean that you will be able to accommodate all the information in your answer, right? यहाँ तक clear है? जैसे देखो इसी की बात करें, if I need to write an example, because here in such questions we have to write the examples too. So when we talk about, let's say किस टॉपिक को उठाएं यहाँ से, let's talk about equality before law. Let's say there is a police officer, or let's say there is any civil servant. He is performing his duty, and when he is performing his duty, party A is in the power, but he likes party B more, and then party C, D, E, F, they are also there. Now, can he be biased or partial just because party B is in the power and he likes party A, or vice versa? Answer is no. So when a police officer may personally dislike a specific political party, but that party is not in the power, rather the party that he hates, that party is in the power, that does not mean that he is going to be biased there. So equality before law here means, it can be like interpreted in two different manner, means the person should not be biased towards people on the basis of caste, class, gender. At the same time, the biasness should not be there with respect to the regime that he is serving under. ठीक है, ये आप एग्जांपल भी यहां पर दे सकते हैं. सिग्निफिकेंस की बात करते हैं फॉर अ पब्लिक सर्वेंट, बिकॉज अगर हम सेकंड पार्ट को देखते हैं क्वेश्चन की दोबारा से, और मैं आपसे यही रिक्वेस्ट करूंगा कि जस्ट ट्राई टू गो थ्रू द क्वेश्चन अगेन एंड अगेन, जस्ट रीड द क्वेश्चन मल्टीपल टाइम्स, बिकॉज कई बार क्या होता है कि व्हेन यू रीड अ क्वेश्चन एंड यू स्टार्ट आंसरिंग, व्हाइल यू आर आंसरिंग द क्वेश्चन, कई बार आप वहां पर भी डिफ्लेक्ट हो जाते हैं. इट मींस the requirement of the question is something that does not stay in your mind, and you start addressing the issue which is not even asked in the question. So यहाँ पर क्वेश्चन के ऊपर दोबारा चले तो they are saying examine the significance of constitutional morality for the public servant, highlighting the role in promoting good governance and accountability. So now we need to mention the significance and we need to relate that with good governance and accountability. यहाँ पे इसी कुछ चीज को डिस्कस करते हैं फिर. So when we talk about significance for a public servant and how it is related to good governance and accountability, ये हम देखने वाले. Let's talk about ensuring impartiality. Now in a public distribution system, let's say ration is being distributed, an officer cannot favor his own caste, and if it does that, can we say that the person is impartial? Answer is no. So there is a person, let's say there is a government employee, and he says कि I'm going to give all the ration to the people of my caste, my community, my religion, then of course वहां पे क्या होगा? Impartiality will not exist. So here the person needs to ensure that the impartiality does exist in the system. So by doing that, if a person is impartial, then he is ensuring good governance, and the reason he is doing that because he is also answerable to the people as well as his senior, preventing misuse of power. So here let's say there is a minister. He is trying to pressurize a civil servant, and he wants the civil servant to bypass certain environmental clearances so that the project could be cleared or project could be passed. If the person does that under the pressure, that will be like he is violating the principle of good governance, and therefore we can say that he is not being an ideal civil servant, because he is not only answerable to the government, he is answerable to the people also. And therefore if there's a project which need not to be passed because certain issues exist, he should not do that, right? So here preventing misuse of power is something which is also required in the public services to ensure good governance in the system. इसके बाद है balancing majority and minority rights. Now this one is related to the first point, just a little bit variation, that when you are there, then of course you have to give equal weightage to X community, Y community, Z community. Doesn't matter how many communities are there, doesn't matter what their population size is, only then you will be able to deliver the justice. Then we have strengthening accountability. How will this happen? देखो, when there's a public servant, he is in the public domain, he is supposed to answer to the people, he is supposed to answer to the seniors also. But right now we will confine our discussion with the public. So there's a person, this person is answerable to the people, and that can be done when he is providing the replies to the RTA, there is a question. A question is being asked by a specific individual with respect to a decision that the person has taken with respect to a particular project. Now here the civil servant has this, you can say, option of answering or not answering, or maybe misuse some of the provisions of the RTA Act, and then he can say the information is classified and therefore I will not be able to provide you the same. That can also be done. But in this scenario, when we know that the civil servant ideally should be accountable to the people, then in that case, it doesn't matter how big or difficult the question is, he's supposed to reply to that person, or you can say the person who has filed the RTA, right? And we can also strengthen accountability or answerability with the help of various C's also. We have covered this also in the class. All the C's, CVC, CBI, CAG, CEC, even the courts or the judiciary also, right? When we have this, we can ensure good governance here. Eventually, when we know that these things are happening, it is going to promote the good governance, because in such governance, transparency will be there. I've already given you the example of RTA. So, क्या देखा हमने यहाँ पर? Constitutional morality. We have covered the key elements जो लिखे जा सकते हैं यहाँ पर, and you can also talk about significance of the public servant and accountability. And finally, we can conclude it. We can give an example also, and then we can conclude it, because here ethics question was, there was a, you can say, similarity with polity, and therefore you can take an example from the polity also, because ethics has borrowed various things from various subjects. You're going to find history also, you're going to find psychology as well, you're going to find society portion as well. So you can borrow the examples from those arenas, because we are talking about the constitutional morality. You can talk about constitutional morality, you can refer this case. It's not mandatory to mention, but yes, if you're able to recall a case like this, you're able to relate this during that exam pressure, you must write this, because here also we talk about the basic structure. Doctrine reminds civil servant that even parliament cannot act against the constitutional morality. You can write these cases as an example also. And finally, once you are like done with the introduction part, the body part or the example part, you can write the conclusion. Constitutional morality act as the ethical backbone of the Indian democracy. For public servants, it means working with integrity, neutrality, accountability, all the things directly or indirectly mentioned in our constitution. So it ensures not only the governance, it ensures good governance also, and the power which is given to the public servants, even their accountability can be established for such people. Then once again, if you want to write, if you have that much space, you can once again reiterate justice, liberty, equality and fraternity. This way you can conclude the answer. Now let's move to the next question. That is question number 3B. The greatest discovery of my generation is that a human being can alter his life by altering the attitudes. William James. You have to answer this in 150 words, and that is the, according to me, that is the best thing which can happen in the ethics paper, that you are not supposed to write an answer like essay answer on this, because if you are supposed to write like 1500 words or maybe more than that, then that is going to be challenging. Let's say you're supposed to write 2500 words. That is going to be challenging, but you are supposed to write 150 words here. And even in the classes I've told you, doesn't matter how many thinkers or authors you're going to cover, there will always be some curveballs which are sent towards you by UPSC. Because agar aap 500 thinkers bhi cover karte hain, not necessary that you're going to see all the thinkers there in your question paper. Like here, William James is not mentioned as a mainstream thinker because he is considered as father of American psychology. And here, when we cover the thinkers, many of us, we do not cover the, you can say, thinkers from the psychological domain. But here it is mentioned. So let's try to interpret the quotation, because I told you that interpretation of the quotation is the most important aspect. That is the most important thing that will help you in solving the question, particularly these kind of questions. So here he is saying, and he is giving a very generic kind of statement. The greatest discovery of my generation is that human being can alter his life by altering the attitude. So here we are talking about attitude. That is the first keyword. And then of course we are talking about that life can be changed. So here William James is trying to show you the linkage between attitude, that once you change this, you can change the life, right? This is a very motivational kind of thought. Agar aapne koi self-help book padhi, or maybe you have seen some of the motivational videos, you will see that directly, indirectly, these things are also mentioned in such books or in such videos. And we are just covering that only. So once you change the attitude, life can also be transformed. So ये आपके लिए बहुत आसान होगा. Positive attitude means life will be positive or successful. negative attitude towards life means, or negative attitude towards anything, that can be equated with negative attitude towards life, or you might not be able to achieve much of the things in the life. I read about William James, but again, I never read this quotation. I read about William James because my option was psychology. So I read about this guy for the very first time in 2010. This guy's name and some of his work is mentioned in all the psychology books, chapter number 1. But even if you've not read about it, still you can interpret the quotation and write the answer here. ठीक है, कैसे देखते हैं एक बार. You can start with this. Our thoughts and attitudes shape how we see the world, how we respond to challenges, and ultimately what kind of life we live. Attitude is like the lens through which we view the world. By cleaning or changing the lens, the same world looks different. There are so many lines. It's not necessary that you're supposed to introduce your answer with such lines. You can also talk about it. Attitude determines altitude. कुछ भी आप लिख सकते हैं, but that must be relevant and related to the quotation. It means how, if you change the attitude, that is going to change the life, or that is going to bring a transformation change in your life. So an example can also be given here. जैसे एक example मैं आपको देता हूँ. Let's say there are two individuals, A and B. A is an average student. B is also an average student. A's attitude is negative towards self, but he prepares for UPSC. B's attitude is positive and he also prepares for UPSC. Both the candidates know that they are the average players, but at the same time, the attitude is negative, attitude is positive towards self. That self-esteem which is supposed to be there, that is missing. So A says that if I prepare for UPSC because I have been an average player, average student, I might not be able to crack this exam. But the B has a very different attitude or different approach. He says that I have been an average student throughout my life, in class 11, 12, before that, even in the graduation. But since I don't know much, UPSC's preparation is going to be an opportunity for me to reread all the things, means to read all the NCRTs that I missed during the school time. Maybe I was cramming that time. This is going to be an opportunity for me to read all those subjects which I skipped in school or the college. So attitude is different. So here the results will be different because attitude ab initio is negative. And here I'm not saying that this person is like it is mandatory that he is going to pass the exam. Not necessary, but yes, at least that initial motivation which is required, or that initial boost which is required, that is going to be there. And if this person follows all the processes which are there to crack the exam, he will end up cracking the exam. The reason is because attitude towards exam, attitude towards self, that is positive, and that is going to bring a transformational change in the life. So you can give the examples like this. Now this is the example which is like from the personal life, because it is a very generic quotation. So you can give any example. You can give any generic example, the one which we have given, or you can give the example from the civil services or public administration also. ये भी देख सकते हैं. देखो यहाँ पर एक example हो सकता है. A and B both are preparing for the civil service exam. This guy fails in the prelims examination. This guy also fails in the prelims examination. But this guy says, I can never crack this exam. This is the attitude now. So by the thought processes, he is changing his attitude. B says, okay, let me analyze the mistakes that I committed in the prelims examination. He is basically right now analyzing all the mistakes, and he is learning from those mistakes. He is taking the feedback also, and thereby he is changing his strategy so that in the upcoming exam, he should be able to pass the exam. So on the one side, the person is dropping the preparation. On the other side, he is learning from his mistake and he is moving forward. ठीक है, इस तरीके का एग्जांपल दे सकते हैं. Or you can talk about a public administrator also. Let's say there are two DMs, DM1 and DM2. ठीक है. Let's say they are facing the same situation. Flood happens or drought-like situation happens in their district. DM1 says, I don't have ample resources, therefore I cannot do much. And you can anticipate the kind of results or the consequences this guy is going to see or face. DM2 says, I understand resources are not there or less resources are available. Resource crunch is there. I acknowledge that. Let me think and let me see. Now this guy is using his creativity. Let me see what can be done so that I could increase these resources. So what he does, he talks to the NGOs, he talks to like some volunteers also. He is using the technology as well, and therefore he is able to deliver better results as compared to DM1. So how did this change happen? Because of the attitude, DM1 attitude and DM2 attitude, it was like highly, you can say, different. So here you can give the example from your personal life. You can give the example from the bureaucracy also. ठीक है, दो एग्जांपल दे सकते हैं. The reason is because statement is generic in nature, right? Now relevance to ethics. So here certain terminologies are given. For example, integrity and optimism. An officer with a constructive attitude maintains integrity under the stress. So basically you can use these terminologies if you want to, but this one is optional because the moment you write, आप खुद देखिएगा, the moment you write the introduction part, then you give two examples, then you will not have enough space, or that word limit will be saturated, and therefore you will not have ample time or space to write these things. But still I am providing you this excess data so that when you practice you should be able to do or write this. Empathy, attitude of respect and compassion improves public trust. So basically they are saying when you have a positive attitude, once you have the positive attitude, this thing will improve, this thing will improve, this thing will improve, this thing will improve. कैसे? When you have the positive attitude, they are saying you will be more empathetic towards people. हमने ये example देखा. The person was saying that because of the flood, many people, thousands, lakhs of people will be impacted. Therefore, I need to do something to ensure that this problem should not happen. Right? He will be more accountable. Here he will say that I am given this position, and therefore if a person wants to know some information, if a person wants to get some information from me, I am supposed to provide that information. ठीक है? Resilience कैसे होगी इसके अंदर? Relevance to ethics के अंदर बताइए. Because a mindset, when it is positive, it is going to reduce the burnout, and even if there is a crisis like situation, the person will be able to perform well. जैसे this was a crisis like situation, and if attitude is positive, because this is the crisis, flood जो है क्या है, flooding जो हो रही है, that is the crisis like situation. So here in the crisis like situation, a person with a negative mindset and a person with a positive mindset, they are behaving in an absolute different manner. They are like, behavior is completely opposite to each other, 180-degree opposite you can say, right? अब last में जाकर हम क्या कर सकते हैं? Last में जाकर we can write a conclusion also. कैसे लिखेंगे? यहाँ देखिएगा. So William James highlights a timeless truth. Outer change begins with inner change. For a public servant, this is especially important because attitude directly impacts governance, justice, and citizen welfare. And if you see, by writing this last line, इन्होंने क्या किया है? Here, we are writing a very generic line. You can write just generic line also. Or here in the second statement, they are trying to relate the quotation with bureaucracy. That's why they are writing that it impacts governance, justice, and citizen welfare. Thus, cultivating a positive, problem-solving, empathetic attitude, it is going to help a civil servant in discharging his duty, because being ethical is also his duty towards the society. So you can write the conclusion like this in 2 lines, 2 to 3 lines. 150 words आपके यहाँ पर complete हो जाएंगे. So introduction, then you're going to write or give 2 examples. This portion is optional for you. Let's say if you have like if you are able to write the answer in 120 words, so you can add these pointers, and then finally you can write the conclusion. Okay, let's move to next question. This is question number 4B. Now again we are talking about thinker Lord Mahavira. We have covered Lord Mahavira in the classes also. अब यहाँ पे ध्यान से देखिएगा, question is quite interesting and easy also. What are the, I won't say that this question was easy. No, it was not, because again, who would have thought that they are going to ask a psychologist? This question was, I would say, average, because we have covered good governance, accountability, but the thing which makes it a bit difficult because they are interrelating 2 topics. This one is easy. The reason I'm saying the third question is easy because we have covered Lord Mahavira in the class. And the another aspect which makes it easy is, what are the major teachings? They are not asking you to define or describe a specific teaching. If they ask you कि define अनेकांतवाद, define asteya, which is one of the teachings by Lord Mahavira, then the question will become difficult. But they are saying what are the major teachings? So it is an open-ended question for you. जो भी teachings आपको पता है, the major teachings, you can talk about that. You can give the examples on the same. So they are basically giving you a lot of leeway. You are getting ample space and scope here to talk about any teachings by Lord Mahavira. Any teaching here means some of the mainstream teachings. Explain their relevance for the contemporary world. So you can relate this with life. You can relate this with the bureaucracy also. हम दोनों तरफ से example देखेंगे यहाँ पर. ठीक है? यहाँ तक quotation based question. Okay. Now, since we have covered this in class, if you remember, we talked about Buddhism, we talked about Lord Mahavira, Lord Buddha and Lord Mahavira, and there one thing was common, that was desire. Desire is the root cause of all the suffering. And when we talk about Buddhism, eightfold path, Ashtang mark was given. And जब हम बात करते हैं Lord Mahavira की, so he has talked about KFC, KFC here means right knowledge, right faith, and right conduct. The desires are there, but we can neutralize those desires if we have right knowledge, we have right faith, and right conduct. He has also talked about anekantvad. You can start the answer with this. Okay, desire is the problem, and then of course the solution is this, which is mentioned by Lord Mahavira or in Jainism. This is also called Triratna theory. ठीक है, देखो यहां पर कैसे शुरुआत कर सकते हैं. Lord Mahavira, the 24th Tirthankar of Jainism, preached a simple yet profound path of self-discipline, non-violence, and truth. His teachings are not only religious in nature, his teachings are also ethical guidelines for the people. And that's why you're going to find that whenever conflict, or you can say ecological crisis, or maybe some sort of consumerism happens, in all those arenas, you're going to find that his teachings become more and more relevant and significant. यहां पर आते हैं after the introduction. Major teachings: ahimsa, satya, asteya, aparigraha, brahmacharya, and anekantvad. And we have covered this with the help of Gandhiji, because these were the principles, or you can say teachings, which were borrowed by Gandhiji also. And we have also covered anekantvad in the class. यही सब चीजें हम cover करेंगे. So ahimsa में अब देखो, because we are talking about teaching, it's not like you have to write all the teachings here. I am giving you all the mainstream or all the major teachings here in this class. But when you're writing the answer, even if you're able to write 3, let's say you talk about ahimsa, you talk about aparigraha, you talk about anekantvad, that is sufficient. ठीक है, यहां तक आई. अहिंसा को देखते हैं. So here, what would be the example? ये तो हमें पता है कि अहिंसा is like not harming any living thing, any living creature. And you can give, or you can relate this with the current affairs. Recent judgment on dogs, stray dogs, relate कर सकते हैं. Again, not asking you to write each and everything, because you have to write in 150 words, but yes, very briefly you can relate these teachings with the current affairs. Satya में क्या है? Satya में he talks about speaking the truth. So in the public life also, you will see that this is something which we expect from the civil servants also, that when they are there in the office, they should speak the truth. Now I'm going to relate this, even though it is not necessary, but I'm going to relate most of these things with either the civil services or the bureaucracy. Astya means non-stealing. Can you relate this with bureaucracy? Yes. Even as a civil servant, they say that when you are there managing the public fund, then of course you are supposed to use that fund in the most fair and justiciable manner, right? So astya means non-stealing. Aparigraha means no possession or no attachment. So when we talk about astya or aparigraha, they are going to give you a civil servant, or you can say if a civil servant is practicing these two principles, astya means non-stealing, aparigraha means non-attachment, that person is not going to hold many things. That person will not be after that consumeristic society that is something which exists at the moment. That person eventually, because the greed is not there, he does not want to consume more and more. You are going to find a civil servant who is not corrupt in nature. You are going to find mostly the honest civil servant. Okay? Brahmacharya, now there can be two different meanings here, because when you talk about brahmacharya, for monks it is celibacy. It is celibacy. But for the general public, here it is control over desire, moderation in the desire. You should not accumulate more and more. Once again, you should not become the part and parcel of this consumeristic society. Okay? So brahmacharya. He has also talked about anekantvad. Now this is an interesting doctrine and something which we practice in our democracy also. Because in democracy we say, what is the major point that we give? In democracy we say, there are, let's say, different individuals. A is here, B is here, C. A believes in opinion 1, B believes in opinion 2, C believes in opinion 3. And they all have the freedom to have their own opinions. And this is the beauty of democracy. Because diversity of viewpoints may exist. And yes, there is a possibility all of them can be right at the same time. If you remember, I showed you that elephant picture in the class just to explain this topic. So here there can be multiple, you can say, there can be one particular situation, but there can be different vantage points from where different individuals can see the same situation from different angle, and all of them can be right at the same time. When we have democracy, or when we have acceptance of different viewpoints in the society, will you have more tolerant society or intolerant society? Of course, in such situation, you are going to see a more tolerant society, because here A believes in opinion 1, but at the same time, he respects opinion 2, he respects opinion 3 also. B believes in opinion 2, but he respects other opinions as well. And the same goes for C. But if you find a society jahan par you do not have anekantvad, or you can say people do not accept different opinions, then A will say, I believe in this opinion and this opinion is right. Rest of the opinions are wrong. So B and C are wrong. B will say, I am right, but others are wrong. And the C is going to do the same thing. In that society, you're going to see a lot of conflict. And of course, that tolerance which we were talking about, that would be missing. So we can talk about these major teachings, or you can say some of these teachings can be mentioned. Then we have relevance in the contemporary world. So peace and harmony, because yahan par pucha tha, this is the second part of the question, that how it is relevant for the contemporary world. So we have talked about Lord Mahavira. We have talked about the major teachings. These are the major teachings with examples. Are you supposed to write everything? Answer is no, because otherwise it will be like an answer in 500 to 600 words. So you're not supposed to write everything, but I'm explaining or giving you the idea so that you can just pick ahimsa, or maybe you can talk about aparigraha and anikantvad and you can complete your answer. अब देखते हैं नेक्स्ट क्या था, रेलेवेंस इन द कंटेम्प्रेरी वर्ल्ड. इज इट रेलेवेंट फॉर द कंटेम्प्रेरी वर्ल्ड? आंसर इज यस. Peace and harmony. Do we require peace and harmony? You can again relate it with the current affairs, the kind of things which are happening at the world stage. The warfare is going on. There are like multiple countries, they are in conflict with other countries. So here the teachings become even more important. Ahimsa is crucial for reducing violence, terrorism, and even communal hatred. If you want that peace and cohesion in the society, then definitely the peace and harmony, these teachings means this teaching becomes even more important. For environmental ethics, देखो अपरिग्रह, पीछे मैं आता हूं, यहाँ पे देखिएगा how we are relating these two things. अपरिग्रह talks about non-attachment, non-possession. But if you do not believe in this, what will happen? Consumerism. Then what will happen? You will ask for more and more things, and eventually because of that greed, you will end up cutting the trees, or maybe taking over the other entities' possessions. So here aparigraha teaches us to consume less, conserve the nature, fight the climate change, and this is something which Jainism also talks about. Next, public administration and governance. Yahan par we can talk about astya and aparigraha. I've already said that if you are not attached, you are not in the habit of holding, and you are satisfied with whatever is given to you, then you are going to be an ideal civil servant. And when we have the ideal civil servant, we can have the good governance also. The problem happens when the civil servants are greedy, and then the kind of governance that we get, that is not ideal in nature, that is definitely or certainly not good in nature. So if you want to have the good governance, you need to have the ideal civil servant, and that can happen when the civil servants who are serving the society, they should not be attached to the things, means they should not be greedy, and they should be moderate when it comes to desire, means they should be satisfied with the salary which is given to them. Next, mental health and simplicity. ये कैसे? Mental health and simplicity के अंदर you can basically here we can relate it with aparigraha and brahmacharya again. It can reduce stress, competition, and materialistic anxiety. When you know that it is not a race. If a person has X amount of money or X amount of possession, my race is not with that person. My race is not with anybody. I am in peace with myself, and that's why I should not hold or collect the things. So here mental health and simplicity के लिए भी you can apply these principles. ठीक है. Next is conflict resolution. So here once again we can talk about anikantvad, because anikantvad में क्या था? Will it lead to conflict? Conflict will be more, or conflict will be resolved more. So when we know that anikantvad exists in the society, it means you can have your opinion, I can have my opinion, and we respect each other's opinion, even though the opinions are 180-degree opposite. So conflict resolution will happen automatically. And since we require peace and harmony, we require this provision not only in a specific country, but in a globalized economy where we know that consumer-driven, conflict-prone world exists. Therefore, we require all these principles at the global level. It means we can say Lord Mahavira's teaching, they are not relevant for a specific country only. It is required for the entire world, because if you see these things which Gandhiji also borrowed, we do not require this thing in a specific country. We require this thing to be practiced in all the countries to have a peaceful world. Right? This is how you're going to write the answer. Conclusion में क्या लिख सकते हैं? Mahavira's message is timeless. Live simply, think compassionately, and act truthfully. Next, for today's administrators. Now, this is for the generic population. The generic statement is there. Even for the bureaucrats, we know that astya and aparigraha that can be mentioned. वही चीजें यहाँ पर लिखी गई हैं. for the ethical governance, what do we need for today's administrators, policymakers, citizens? These teachings provide moral framework for ethical governance, sustainable development, and peaceful coexistence. So here, when we talk about these provisions, his principles can guide us in balancing not only the personal desire, but we can be an asset for the social good also. Therefore, these teachings are not only important to develop that individual strong moral character, but even for the societal harmony. So when you have a civil servant with strong moral character, that is eventually going to lead to or contribute to social harmony and as well as for the good governance. So it is going to basically, you can say, help the individual. And since this individual means a civil servant, he is an ideal civil servant, he is going to lead to good governance and you can say the societal harmony as well. So you can conclude by writing any of these lines. ये भी लिख सकते हैं, जो मैंने आपको बताया वो भी लिख सकते हैं, ठीक है? In 150 words, you can once again answer like this. Now, next देखते हैं, this question number 6A. It is said that for an ethical work culture, we have covered the work culture in the class, there must be a code of ethics. We have covered code of ethics also in the class. Once again, they're interrelating these two topics in place in every organization. Now, this is the first part of the question. It is said that for an ethical work culture, there must be a code of ethics in place. We will see whether this statement is right or not. To ensure value-based, this is the first terminology, and compliance-based work culture, what suitable measures would you adopt in your work culture? Once again, to ensure, the first part is value-based and second part is compliance-based work culture. What suitable measures would you adopt in your workplace? What will you do as a civil servant? याद करिएगा, in the class also we discussed, this is the ideal work culture. What are the things that you are going to? This was a straightforward question जो हम क्लास में भी डिस्कस करते थे और मैंने आपसे ये चीज मैं आपसे ही पूछता था कि आप बताएं कि you are a civil servant, assume you are a civil servant, what are the things that you are going to do to create an ideal work culture? If you have attended the online or the offline classes, you know that we discussed about this and you were the one who gave all the pointers कि I'm going to do this or I'm going to do that to ensure that the ideal work culture should exist in the organization. यहाँ पर आते हैं, फर्स्ट जो क्वेश्चन हमारा इसको डील करते हैं पहले. इट इज सेड दैट फॉर एन एथिकल वर्क कल्चर देयर मस्ट बी अ कोड ऑफ एथिक्स इन प्लेस ऑफ एवरी ऑर्गेनाइजेशन. हाउ कैन वी स्टार्ट द आंसर? अब यहां पे दिखेगा इसके अंदर. फर्स्ट ऑफ ऑल, these are the two terminologies, ethical work culture and code of ethics. In one line, we can define this. We can define the work culture in a single line and we can define the code of ethics in a single line. ठीक है? A code of ethics by itself, is it enough? Answer is no. We have discussed this in the class that code of ethics per se is not enough. Many organizations, they do not have the code of ethics. The reason is because code of conduct exists. Which one is legally binding? Code of conduct is legally binding and that basically is a reason that many organizations, they do not have code of ethics at place. Even when they have it, there is only a moral binding. The legal binding is not there and that becomes a reason that many organizations, they do not have it at all. मैंने आपको ये भी एग्जांपल दिया था कि IAAS की वेबसाइट थी जहां पर that was the only website that time जहां पर code of ethics was available. I checked the other services website too. That time when I checked it, that time this document was not available. So we can start with writing about in single line what is work culture, what is code of ethics. ठीक है, इतना हम लिखेंगे. यहां तक क्लियर है? ओके, अब हम आते हैं इसके अंदर ही. जब हम कोड ऑफ एथिक्स, कोड ऑफ कंडक्ट की बात करते हैं, वी नो दैट दिस ओनली हैविंग द कोड ऑफ एथिक्स दैट इज नॉट सफिशिएंट बिकॉज सिविल सर्वेंट दे नीड टू हैव द वैल्यू बेस्ड एथिकल स्ट्रक्चर, आल्सो वैल्यू बेस्ड ओरिएंटेशन एज वेल. उसको डिस्कस करते हैं. मेजर्स टू एंश्योर वैल्यू बेस्ड वर्क कल्चर, बिकॉज हम इसको कैसे डिस्कस करेंगे, वैल्यू बेस्ड वर्क कल्चर कैसे क्रिएट कर सकते हैं, देन हाउ कैन वी क्रिएट एथिक्स बेस्ड वर्क कल्चर. नेक्स्ट क्या होगा, जस्ट अ सेकंड. Okay, this one is working now. ठीक है. So value based work culture and we will also see compliance based work culture. ठीक है. And then we'll try to integrate these two because question इसी चीज की requirement दे रहा है हमें. So the question is asking to ensure value based and compliance based work culture, what suitable measures you are going to adopt. चलिए. So measures to ensure value based work culture. When we say value based and compliance based, difference समझिएगा. Value based here means we are giving attention or emphasis on values, on the values. This can be the value of the person and that value or those values can be imbibed by a system also. So here the focus is more on ethics, the focus is more on morals, the focus is more on the values. इसको समझते हैं. ethical induction and training. So here, let's say you are a civil servant and you want to have, or you want to create a value-based work culture in your organization. You want that everybody should be value-driven in your organization. आप क्या करोगे उसके लिए? You will go for ethical induction and training. It means when it comes to posting, when it comes to transfers, when it comes to like even the training, you will try to include these elements like integrity, empathy, impartiality, transparency in the training process. जैसे we want the ethical civil servants. That's why ethics as a subject is taught to you. Even in your institutes, they are going to talk about the ethical values or the ethics in general. The reason is because they want the ethical civil servant to be there. Similarly, when you are the senior most person and you want the ethical employees or value driven employees in your organization, so you can go for the training. ये भी हमने क्लास में डिस्कस किया था. Role modeling by leadership. So here, just because the senior person or the senior most person is inducting the training or he is talking about the ethics and values on daily basis, that will not do the job. He needs to walk the talk, and therefore you do not learn merely by hearing your seniors. You see the actions of the senior. Let's say if the senior per se is corrupt, but he talks about values all the time, will you trust that person? Answer is no. That's why it is said that when we talk about the senior, they need to walk the talk. They need to show that in their leadership style, and if they themselves are honest, then the chances are likely that you will follow them. Okay? So यहाँ पर क्या करना है? We need to ensure the leaders should be there and they need to walk the talk. यहाँ तक clear है? Okay. Then recognition of ethical conduct. There can be some, let's say, employees in your organization, or let's say if you're a civil servant, there can be many government employees in your organization. They are the ones who go beyond the rules to help the people. अब ध्यान से सुनिएगा यहाँ पर, going beyond the rules and breaking the rules. These are two different things. We do not expect people to break the rules. We do not want our employees to break the rules. If you are a civil servant, there are so many people working under you. You do not want them to break the rules. Example में देखेंगे कैसे. But you can definitely desire or want them to go beyond the rules to help the people. It is like treading that extra mile for the people. They can go beyond the rules, but they cannot break the rules. Difference अभी example में समझेंगे. And when you have such employees, you can definitely reward them and recognize these achievements, because in the government sector or otherwise, whenever your achievements, whenever you do something good, if that is recognized, that gives you positive reinforcement to do those things in future more and more. वो यहाँ पर हो जाएगा. Open door and whistleblower mechanism. Now, this is basically the problem in many organizations, that there are some honest employees. And then they know that there are corrupt employees too, and they want to complain against those corrupt employees. But the problem happens, and the problem is that they cannot do that because they are always in a worry that if I complain, maybe the senior is also hand in glove with them. Maybe the senior might not listen. Maybe I will end up creating a lot of enemies in the organization. But when you have the open door, it means you are making yourself approachable for the people, that if you want to complain, if you are facing any dilemma, if any misconduct is there, you can come to me without any fear. Whistleblower mechanism क्या कहते हैं यहाँ पर ही अगर हम बात करें, so anonymous reporting facility can also be provided to the people. So anonymously you can definitely give your feedback, you can definitely complain against XYZ when you know that some sort of misconduct is happening from their side. ठीक है, without revealing your identity, this can happen. Then ethical nudges in daily routine. Nudges क्या होता है? Ethical nudges mean, जैसे there's a famous book also with the name Nudge, जहां पर you're not pushing anybody, you're just giving that small push, like जैसे कहते हैं किसी को हल्का सा आगे के लिए boost करना. You're not actually boosting, but yes, you are just supporting that person to do something which is right. So here you can have few things in your organization. By doing that, you are not saying that I am the one who is like boosting the ethical culture in the organization, but those steps are indirectly giving the messages that you are ethical in approach. So for example, there are certain things which are not mandatory in the organization, but you still do that because you know that you want to provide services to the people. Jaise, when we talk about RTI, do you think RTI and the answers of the RTI, RTSL, they are there in all the organization? Answer is yes, because it is mandatory from the government side that whenever the RTA is there, you are supposed to reply within 30 days. But what about citizen charter? Is it mandatory? Answer is no. So it is mandatory for you to have this cell in your organization to reply to all the RTIs, but this one is not mandatory. But when you enter into the organization, you give this idea to your staff members कि ये तो होगा ही होगा. but even the citizen charter should also be there, and we are going to abide by the citizen charter even though it is not mandatory. So basically, once again, you are setting a positive example, and you are nudging the other employees that you also need to give something extra. You are basically displaying the values by doing this, by doing something which is not mandatory, rather which is optional, because you want to provide best quality services to the people. ठीक है, so ये सब चीजें करी जा सकती है to ensure value based work culture. Measures to ensure a compliance based work culture, इसमें क्या हो सकता है? जब हम compliance based की बात कर रहे हैं, basically it is the rule based. It is the rule based. याद करिएगा, we talked about probity in the very first class. Probity क्या है? यही तो है जहां पर आप रूल्स को फॉलो करते हैं. So clear standard operating procedure. There should not be any, you can say, conflict. There should not be any confusion when it comes to rules and regulations. Rules should be clear. कि if A happens, then only B happens. If you want to pass this file, these 3 documents are required and they are mandatory to be there. So your SOP should be as clear as possible. Reasons, rationality should be there. E-processes and transparency. The moment you shift towards, let's say, digital mechanism, then the chances of corruption, because हमने ये इसको लेकर बात भी करी है कि the more digitalization happens, the corruption chances they come down. So there is an inverse relationship. More the digitalization, because you are removing the people and now the system is coming into picture, therefore the chances of corruption, they come down. And this is precisely what we are trying to do here. E-processes, e-procurement, e-tendering, याद करिएगा. We have a setup also with the help of which we procure things. So we have Amazon.in when you want to buy something, but we have such system for government also. We have GEM, government e-marketplace. I'm not saying it has like taken the corruption to the zero level, but it has reduced the corruption largely. It has reduced the favoritism largely. It has not come to zero. ये भी ध्यान रखिएगा. Next is audit and vigilance system. So random inspection can be done, because when you do that, you are basically introducing a rule-based system in the organization. Then we have conflict of interest declaration. Let's say you are managing a contract and your near dear one is also wants to become one of the applicant. In that case, you can definitely consult your senior and you can be out of that position. Basically, I'm saying that you should not be managing that entire project. Someone else should do it, because here the conflict of interest can come into picture. Like आपने देखा होगा in the case of judges of judiciary. So whenever there's a judge and the case comes to his court and the person is related to him, in that case that person can reveal this thing and he can say, okay, conflict of interest exists, that's why I'm not going to manage this case. The same thing can happen with the bureaucrats too, and here the person can recuse himself, I'm not going to manage this. The reason is because my near dear or my known individuals are participating in this. So mandatory disclosure for officers handling contracts or sensitive postings, these things should be there. Time bound grievance redressal system, we have discussed about, yaad karega, CP grams, and such other portals are also there, where you're going to see the timeline also. So a complaint comes, you can see, okay, 7 days are passed and no action is taken on this complaint. Or if you reply the same, then also it shows that within 7 days the complaint is disposed. Okay? So if the deadlines are breached, then also penal provision should exist. So this is rule-based or compliance-based work culture. So you can create an ethical work culture, value-based work culture. You can also create a rule-based work culture or the probity-based work culture. Which one is better? याद करिएगा, when we talk about governance, 3 types of governance, X, Y, Z. Final कौन सा था? Good governance. ठीक है, याद होगा आपको, ethical governance, smart governance, and what was the best form of governance? Good governance, because we have to balance the two. वही चीज है यहाँ पर. Which approach is better according to you? The rule-based approach or the value-based approach? An amalgamation of these two. ठीक है, amalgamation of these two, because we do not want the system to be only value based. We want the efficiency to be there as well. We want the rules to be there, but at the same time we want the values to be there as well. We want the values to be there at the same time. It should be a rational rule based system. जैसे यहाँ देखिएगा, in a welfare delivery, compliance ensures ration is distributed strictly as per eligibility. Values ensure that a genuine beneficiary is not denied due to biometric error. इसका एक example भी हमारे पास है. So basically we want that if some mistakes are happening because of the system or because of, let's say, IT related problem is there, it does not mean that we should not provide the benefit to the person. The benefit should be given to the person even if some problems exist. So here values are coming into picture, but at the same time, let's say there's a person who does not have a specific document, and right now we don't know whether this facility should be given to that person or not. But by the exterior, you can see that the person is looking like very poor, and therefore you feel like giving that benefit to the person. So that will be like a value based approach, but that may not be the right approach. इसको एक example से समझते हैं. यहाँ पे देखिएगा, a widow's pension application is pending due to minor documentation error. Now in this case, please write क्या करोगे इस केस में. When you know that you are on a particular position, so here the widow should be given the pension, but the pension application is pending because let's say a minor documentation error is there, maybe one of the documents is not available. In the case studies in the class we discussed this, if you remember. Case study इसी पे किया था हमने. Approach should be balanced. Let's say you know that this person should be given this benefit, but when the document is not available, should you give that benefit to the person? Let's say there's a person who looks very poor, and therefore you think that this person must be below the poverty line, and therefore this benefit should be given to the person. Documents are not there. What should you do? देखो, अब यहाँ पर value based system will say कि ठीक है, benefits can be given, but rule based system will say benefits should not be given. And both the approaches in isolation, they are not right. Because when we talk about the compliance only approach, when you are the compliance based officer, you will reject the file. If by 3 documents are required, there is an error in the document or the document is not available, therefore I am rejecting the file. Is this the right approach? Answer is no. Value based approach will say ki, okay, it looks like that you deserve this pension, so I am going to sign on this file and I'm going to issue you the pension. Is this approach is right? Answer is no, because when the audit happens, then audit department is going to raise an objection that why did you issue this pension to this lady or to this person when the document was not available. So that time penalty can be there over you, or maybe your promotion can also be stopped. Inquiry can also be there against you. So both the approaches in isolation are not right. Therefore a balanced approach is required. ये केस स्टडी में भी हम काफी बार यूज करते हैं. यहाँ पे इन्होंने क्वेश्चन में ही पूछ लिया. सो वैल्यू बेस्ड एंड रूल बेस्ड अप्रोच ये क्या कहेगी? नाउ when you know that you are on a position which is an authority based position, you should make every effort to ensure that the person should get all the required, you can say, benefits. In this case क्या कर सकते हैं? If the error is there, you can call the concerned department to remove the error as soon as possible. If let's say a document is not available, you can contact the concerned department to provide that document as soon as possible. These things can be done. ठीक है? So here, instead of providing the benefits without the document, or instead of rejecting the file, you can call the concerned department using your position, means your authority. You can talk to the concerned person that provide this document within 24 hours or remove this error within 24 hours. Then you will have the document, and then audit department will be very happy. And here the concerned beneficiary will also be very happy because you are not stopping the benefits, you are providing that benefit. So here you are respecting the law because you are complying to the rules and regulations, but at the same time you are also manifesting or expressing the compassion which is required to be there in a civil servant. ठीक है? So आपको बैलेंस करते हुए यहाँ पर चलना है. इस तरीके के एग्जांपल्स आप यूज कर सकते हैं. You can conclude it by an ethical work culture grows when values inspire behavior, compliance ensure discipline. As a civil servant, I would adopt ethical training, transparent system, recognition of integrity, digital monitoring, and citizen-friendly grievance mechanism. Together, they make governance. Together here means in basically value system as well as rule-based system. Together, when you combine these two, you will get a just, lawful, and humane and trustworthy system. A system where people will be able to put their trust. इस तरीके से आप कंक्लूड कर सकते हैं. ठीक है? चलिए, let's move to last question. So last question बात कर रहे हैं, इंटरेस्टिंग है ये भी. India is an emerging economy. Now this is taken from the current affairs. यहाँ पे देखिएगा, मैंने आपको बताया था ethics and various other subjects. So ethics and current affairs. India is an emerging economy. Just a second. India is an emerging economic power of the world as it has recently secured the status of 4th largest economy of the world as per IMF projection. However, it has been observed that some sectors allocated funds remain either underutilized or misutilized. What specific measure would you recommend for ensuring accountability? Now, main question जो है यहाँ से शुरू होता है. ठीक है? ये क्या है? This is just the introduction part. यहाँ तक जो है ना, this is the introduction part कि ऐसा हुआ है. In current affairs, this thing was there that we have become the 4th largest economy, but यहां पर प्रॉब्लम क्या है? यहां पे देखिएगा. However, यहां से क्वेश्चन शुरू है आपका. It has been observed that in some sectors allocated funds remain either underutilized or misutilized. याद करिएगा, पब्लिक फंड जो टॉपिक हमारा था, पब्लिक फंड्स में टेबल चेयर एग्जांपल हमने क्लास में डिस्कस किया था. That sometimes when certain assets are not even required, still we have funds. March rush is there, we want to utilize that fund, and that's why misutilization of the public resources happen. So public resources वाला जो हमारा topic था वहां देखा था हमने, it has been observed that in some sectors allocated funds remain either underutilized or misutilized. What specific measures would you recommend for ensuring accountability? Now this is again bold part, आपके सिलेबस का है, in this regard to stop leakages and gaining the status of third largest economy of the world in near future. So we are saying basically we are the fourth largest economy, we want to become the third largest economy, but इसके साथ तो नहीं हो पाएगा. So there are certain problems that we are seeing in the economy or here in the public domain, and that is funds are given, either they are not utilized or they are misutilized. Misutilized याद करेगा, March rush, accountability में we covered that. And again, that's why they are relating this with accountability in this regard. How to stop the leakages. Okay? So India is the fourth largest economy. We want to become the third largest economy. That will happen because private sector will contribute, but that cannot happen only with the contribution of the private sector, but we require the equal contribution by the public sector also, and that's why this question is asked, because from fourth position, we want to be on the third position. So this is a, you can say, commendable achievement, but we want more now, which is right. For a civil servant, ensuring accountability here means that he is going to ensure transparency, efficiency, and citizen-centric approach too. If that thing happens, then of course this can also be achieved. Yaad kariyega, you can also start the answer by this, that our honorable ex-prime minister also said that if we send 1 rupee, only 15 paisa reaches at the ground level. Why that happens? Because we know that there are a lot of leakages. You can start with this. अगर आपको याद आ जाए, तो you can start with the quotation like this. You can like paraphrase like the prime minister, or maybe if any other thinker or if any other author has given a statement like this, which you can relate, आप दे सकते हैं. When I was like preparing the PPT, मुझे PPT प्रिपेयर करते हुए याद आया कि there was a statement like this by the ex prime minister. तो आप उसको भी मेंशन कर सकते हैं. Not necessary you will be able to recall such things in the exam. हो सकता है एग्जाम प्रेशर में याद ना है, but that is also fine. You just need to give the introduction. If you are able to recall any quotation or any quotation pops up in your mind, you can mention that कि 1 रुपए भेजते हैं तो only 15 पैसे reaches. ये आप लिख सकते हैं. ठीक है. और द टेबल चेयर एग्जांपल जो हमने क्लास में डिस्कस किया था, मार्च रश, वो भी आप लिख सकते हैं. सो यहाँ पे if you want to answer, I have like divided the question in 3 stages: planning stage, implementation stage, and monitoring stage, because the problem or the leakages can happen at any stage. ठीक है, तीनों stages को देखेंगे, and then इसके बाद we will talk about accountability, because that is specifically and separately mentioned in the question. We'll talk about the accountability also. ठीक है, then last में जाकर sectors, this is an optional slide, sector specific checks एक diagram के तौर पे आप बना सकते हैं, ethical anchors देखेंगे, example देखेंगे, and then we are going to conclude. ठीक है, इस तरीके से आंसर कर सकते हैं. सो जल्दी से इसे डिस्कस करते हैं. वी हैव द प्लानिंग स्टेज, राइट एलोकेशन, राइट पर्पस. सो इनिशियली एट द प्लानिंग स्टेज वी वांट दैट अ डिपार्टमेंट शुड गेट ample amount of money, not less, not more, because sometimes what happens that a particular area requires 10 lakh rupees, and if you allocate 40 lakh rupees, what will happen? आप अपने ऊपर भी एग्जाम अप्लाई करके देखिए. Let's say you require 1000 rupees, but your parents give you 10,000 rupees. What will happen? Wastage of money will happen. If you require 1000 rupees, your family gives you 100 rupees. Even in that area also, you will not be able to like utilize that money properly, or the tasks that you want to achieve, you won't be able to achieve those because there is lack of resources. ठीक है. So यहाँ पर we need to go for evidence based budgeting. Here means that we need to see that the money that we are giving, are we getting the output for the same? जैसे आपने देखा होगा recently the government has said, और वैसे 2-3 सालों से ही कह रहे हैं, that each department needs to be independent. रेलवे को लेकर भी ये बात कही थी कि you are providing a very good service, so just try to increase the revenue. आपने recently देखा होगा मेट्रो ने भी क्या किया है, जो रेट्स हैं वो इंक्रीज करें. So these examples can be used. So here the government department needs to be independent. So if they are spending the money, and if it is a revenue based department, it means if it is one of those departments which is generating revenue, then they should be able to self sustain. Only then the budget can be increased in future. So for example, if we are giving you X and you are generating X, it means you are sustainable, self-sustaining yourself. So in future, if you ask for more, we can give you more. Let's say if you're asking for X amount, we give you X amount, then you're able to generate only 50% of that. It means 50% of money is wasted. So in future, government will be more, you can say, reluctant in giving you more and more money. So evidence-based budgeting can be there. Participatory planning here says that whenever we are allocating the funds, participation should be there. Participation, yaad karega, one of the essential elements of good governance. So here, when you are giving the money, so Gram Sabha, ward committees, कंसल्टेशन शुड हैपन विद देम कि कितना पैसा चाहिए आपको, ठीक है, उस हिसाब से ही after taking the feedback money should be given. Otherwise, when the figures are given by some of the officers sitting in their AC chamber, they might not be able to provide you the right figures. Medium term expenditure framework. So basically here they are saying ये आपकी preparation पे भी apply होता है. So when you start the preparation, does it happen that you start from day one and then you evaluate yourself when the prelims examination happens? Answer is no. In between also you keep on evaluating yourself whether my preparation is going in the right direction or not. If it is not going in the right direction, then I need to change my strategy. वैसे ही यहाँ पर भी क्या है, when we talk about government, on the first day when the money is allocated, and that too money is not allocated in a single go, in tranches, in installments, in between also, let's say quarterly basis, 6 months basis, annual basis pay, we keep on evaluating that the money that we are giving to various government departments, are they able to do the justice with that? If yes, then of course another tranche is released. It should not be like that once you release the money, after 5 years or after 3 years you are going to evaluate. Because if you do that, let's say if a problem happens, you evaluate this after 3 or 5 years, or let's say you evaluate your preparation on the prelims day, then the damage will already happen, right? So if you want to prevent that damage, then you have to make sure that somehow quarterly, 6 months, 6 monthly, annual basis pay, there should be evaluation so that the problem should be detected and that should be resolved. So at the initial stage, planning stage also, this can be done. Implementation stage, preventing leakages. So now the money is given, now we are implementing. How can we ensure that the implementation should be best? E-procurement, e-tendering, क्यों कर रहे हैं सर? इसी से रिलेट करते हैं DBT, because we are online, digital mechanism, people are not there, hence the chances of corruption, they will also be less. So here, when we are doing the e-procurement, e-tendering or GEM portal, government e-marketplace portal is used, then we know that the probability of corruption, probability of wastage, probability, these things will be comparatively less, and probability of choosing the right person for the right job, that probability will be higher. Then we have outcome linked fund release. Once again, इसी से relate करता है. If you are providing the good outcome, the outcome that we expect, then of course next installment, next tranche will be released to you. Okay, so for example, let's say you come for the preparation, you are able to crack the prelims examination, and after that now you need to prepare for the mains, and you ask for extra money from your parents. The parents are going to give you the same. The reason is because they know कि बच्चा पढ़ाई कर रहा है, results भी दे रहा है, then they will feel more comfortable and more confident. You are able to crack the mains also. Now you need to prepare for let's say interview. उसके लिए आपने घर वालों से पैसा मांगा तो क्या होगा? They are going to give you the money. The reason is because they know कि आप सही जगह पर पैसे का यूज कर रहे हैं. Nowadays they are also doing this geotagging and digital dashboard. जहां पर भी any asset is created, they say we need to geotag that just to ensure that the asset is created. पहले क्या होता था? The department used to take money that we are going to create this structure, we are going to create this road, but in reality they used to waste such money, and structure and the roads will be there only on paper. But now they are saying no, you need to geotag when you start the construction, in between also, in the middle, and once the construction is completed. At these 3 stages you need to geotag, you need to take the photo, upload the photo, and there should be an online visibility of that assets too. Because now we are checking everything, and since digital mechanisms are introduced, there is very less probability of corruption. Then convergence with technology, इसी point से relate करता है, because यहाँ पर using the public fund management system, आप इसका example दे सकते हैं PFMS, you can see where the money is being utilized. You can track even every rupee, basically even a single rupee, how the public money is being utilized for such purposes in a real time, on real time basis. मॉनिटरिंग स्टेज में क्या है? सोशल ऑडिट, जन सुनवाई हो सकती है. सो सोशल ऑडिट में जैसे आपने मनरेगा में होता हुआ देखा होगा. सो कम्युनिटी वेरिफिकेशन ऑफ द मस्टर रोल, पीडीएस लिस्ट, वेदर द मनी इज बीइंग गिवन टू द राइट पर्सन और नॉट. जैसे आज से कुछ 15-1 साल पहले न्यूज आई थी जिसमें क्या था, आई थिंक 2010-11 के आसपास शायद. So this ghost worker news was there, that there are so many people, they are shown that they are working in Manrega, and in Manrega list their names were also there and they were getting the money on daily basis, but in reality those people did not exist. So पैसा जा कहाँ रहा था? So the Hindu और Indian Express के अंदर first page पे ये news आया करती थी. ठीक है? So it means they were ghost employees or ghost workers there. It means they were just in existence on paper. In reality they did not exist, and this can be detected when we have the social audits, क्योंकि तब भी social audits were happening, and because of social audits by NGOs and other people, these individuals, means the ghost workers, they were detected. Third party audits can also happen. Independent impaneled agencies can also be hired. Then we can have a citizen dashboard also. We have already covered this, CP grams. ऐसा भी किया जा सकता है. वी हैव पब्लिक फंड मैनेजमेंट सिस्टम ऑल्सो. रेड फ्लैग एनालिटिक्स, यहां पर वी कैन यूज बेसिकली आईटी एंड एआई. ठीक है, सो वी कैन रन अ लॉट ऑफ डेटा through the systems, and wherever some sort of problems exist, or maybe there are chances of problems, let's say using the AI and using the metadata, some suspicious activities are happening, AI will be able to detect the same, IT systems will be able to detect the same, and then the same can be analyzed. Agar yaad hoga to IT department and many other departments, they have already started using this. So they are like running a lot of data, because individually it is very difficult for any human to go through each and every file. Therefore they are running this data with the help of information technology and artificial intelligence just to detect such suspicious cases. ठीक है, so we can use that, we can use that here as well. grievance redressal mechanism को भी हम लेकर आ सकते हैं. We can have the helpline number, we can have the online portals, we can have certain officers completely dedicated for this purpose, that if any problem happens, people should be able to contact you, they will be able to present their grievances, and you are supposed to provide them the solution. ये सब चीजें इसमें करी जा सकती हैं. So we have planning stage, implementation stage, monitoring stage. Now the second part, accountability of institution, clear roles and consequences. So in this we can talk about fixing the responsibility. So for example, at planning stage, at in between stage, implementation stage, and even at the final stage, the officers who are supposed to discharge their duties, their names should be mentioned. जैसे आजकल क्या है कि you can take this, you can give this example. Whenever an officer is given a duty to construct a road, the officer name and all the employees who are working under him, unka naam nahi hai, but officer name and assistant name, these names are mentioned just next to the road. The reason is, in future if any problem happens, we know that this is the person who is or who was responsible for the construction of this road, and the quality of the road is not up to the mark. Abhi kya hota hai, if the road is not proper, construction has happened, and after the first rain, now we can see a lot of pits which are there on the road. Now after knowing this, accountability does not come into picture. We always blame the government, but it's not, probably it's not the government, maybe the person who is working in the bureaucracy, he is the one who actually was greedy, and he was the one who basically collaborated with the contractor, and intentionally the right quality road was not created. In this scenario we need to complain against this person, and nowadays we are doing this. So fixing responsibility, the names of the officers are also mentioned, that this person is responsible for construction of this road, and if the road is not up to the mark, we can definitely take action against that specific officer. ये होना चाहिए, हो भी रहा है. Performance linked incentive rewards officers who are doing just opposite to, like the example that I've given. So for example, when there is a road which is constructed, and we know that even after 5 years, 7 years, the road quality is so good that you cannot find any mistake or any problem there. So we need to appreciate and recognize such officers as well. So dono cheezein hain, fixing responsibility, and if the outcome is good, we need to incentivize them, penalize the or penalties for the misuse. So we can have a good quality road, we can have a bad quality road, and we need to deal with these officers in the specific manner. So penalize the one who is responsible for collaborating with the contractor to make money. Take strict action on misappropriation of the funds. Then blacklist the contractor also. On the other end, when the officer has done a commendable job, you need to appreciate and recognize that person also. Then legislative oversight and whistleblower protection. Isko bhi dekhte hain how they are related to accountability. So we need to strengthen the Public Accounts Committee, CAG audits, and their reports should also be taken in the right spirit, and action should also be taken there. Only then we will be able to ensure accountability. ठीक है. At the same time, we need to also encourage reporting of the leakages. ये point हमने पहले भी किया था. So whenever there is a person in the organization, he wants to complain against a corrupt individual, that you can say a more facilitating environment should be provided to the person, so that he could complain without even revealing the identity. ठीक है. There should not be any retaliation against such people if he wants to unearth any problem which is happening in the organization. ठीक है. सेक्टर स्पेसिफिक चेक्स में देयर कैन बी वेरियस सेक्टर्स, बिकॉज हमें 150 वर्ड्स में आंसर लिखना है, तो आप इसका एक डायग्राम बनाकर भी छोड़ सकते हैं. जैसे इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर में क्या होता है, टाइम एंड कोस्ट ओवररन होते हैं. कहा जाता है कि दिस इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर प्रोजेक्ट विल बी कंप्लीटेड इन 2 years, बट 5 साल तक कंप्लीट नहीं होता है. दे ऑल्सो से कि 10,000 करोड़ विल बी स्पेंट ऑन दिस प्रोजेक्ट, बट 20,000 करोड़ इवेंचुअली दैट इज स्पेंट ऑन द प्रोजेक्ट. सो टाइम कोस्ट ओवररन होते हैं. सोशल स्कीम में भी बायोमेट्रिक अटेंडेंस फॉर आंगनवाड़ी टीचर्स, वहां पर प्रॉब्लम्स देखने को मिलती हैं. इन द एजुकेशन सेक्टर ऑल्सो द फंड यूटिलाइजेशन इज नॉट अप टू द मार्क. द अटेंडेंस ऑफ द टीचर इज एन इशू. हेल्थ सेक्टर के अंदर भी यहाँ पर भी लॉट ऑफ करप्शन रिलेटेड केसेस दे कम इनटू पिक्चर. सो रैशनल प्रोक्योरमेंट ऑफ ड्रग्स, ई औषधि ट्रैकिंग, एक्सपायरी मॉनिटरिंग, ये सब चीजें जो है मेंशन करी जा सकती है इन द एग्जांपल. ठीक है, और एक डायग्राम के तौर पर भी यू कैन लाइक मेक दिस. एथिकल एंकर क्या है? वंस अगेन वी आर यूजिंग द टर्मिनोलॉजीज. सो नो टॉलरेंस फॉर द first utilization certificates. So basically these are the terms: integrity, accountability, empathy, justice, sustainability. आप इसको यूज कर सकते हैं when you are writing the answer. Specifically इसको नहीं लिखना है because our question is not asking for this. पहले ही हमारे पास बहुत सारा कंटेंट है लिखने के लिए. So here you can just use these terminologies in your answer. You can write about empathy, justice, sustainability, accountability, integrity. But हाँ, example can be given like this. Let's say 100 crore allocated for rural roads, only 50% used. Villagers allege poor quality and ghost billing. ठीक है, so this is the complaint. So there is this scenario that there is this, let's say, rural area and the road quality is not good. Money is spent, but still the people are not happy. The reason is because output is this. ठीक है, अब क्या कर सकते हैं इस केस में? Mandate geotag or geotagging. कैसे? When the road was started, in between and in the end, when the geotagging happens, you will get to know कि this is the scenario. Foundation level, mid level, completion level. ठीक है, publish the tender winners names and unit cost online. Also publish the names of the people, or you can say officers, who were involved in construction of this. Conduct randomized third party quality audit also, because this is a picture which is submitted by, let's say, a third party, which is submitted by a person, but you also need to check the same from your side. वो भी कर सकते हैं. ठीक है, then after this, organize a Jansunwai to verify the road usability and release the final tranche only after independent clearance. So when you know that you have received a complaint like this, in many cases you will see that the payment to the contractor, that payment is done in different installments or tranches. So you can hold one of the installments or the last installment also, because you know that this is the outcome that we are getting. Just to ensure such things should not happen, क्या करना पड़ेगा? When we want such things should not happen, you need to maintain transparency, release the names of the contractors and the officers involved in this online. Then geotagging means when the project starts, in between and in the end, geotag all this position along with the photos. And after that, just ensure that the last installment should be released when the randomized inspection happens. After the randomized inspection, once that inspection report is submitted to you, everything is okay in that file, then only you should release the payment. इससे क्या होगा? You'll be able to plug out the leakages. Villagers will trust you more and you will be able to get better outputs. Better outcomes will be there. ठीक है, ये सब चीज कर सकते हैं so that such problems should not happen. If this is the scenario in future, definitely we can go for geotagging, randomized audit. We can release the last tranche only after the randomized check. ठीक है, then you will ensure that such kind of problems will not happen in the system. इससे पब्लिक ट्रस्ट भी आपका बढ़ेगा. लास्ट में कंक्लूड कैसे कर सकते हैं? फॉर इंडिया टू राइज टू द थर्ड लार्जेस्ट इकोनॉमी, बिकॉज दैट वाज द क्वेश्चन, ग्रोथ मस्ट बी मैच्ड बाय गवर्नेंस, अकाउंटेबिलिटी इन फंड यूज रिक्वायर्स टेक्नोलॉजी, दैट इज पब्लिक फंड मैनेजमेंट सिस्टम, डीबीटी, डैशबोर्ड्स. डैशबोर्ड का मतलब क्या है? सीपी ग्राम्स हमारा, ट्रांसपेरेंसी, सोशल ऑडिट, सिटीजन चार्टर एंड एथिकल लीडरशिप. व्हेन एवरी रूपी बेसिकली इज ट्रेसेबल and that is tied to the outcomes, leakages, trust issues, and we can say these things, trust issues and leakages can be curtailed, and it is going to accelerate the development, and that development will be clubbed with sustainability. So here, when we know that we want to curb all the leakages, we want to curb the corruption, then of course such actions need to be taken. And since we want to trace every rupee and to ensure that level of transparency, we need to ensure that these 3 steps must be followed. So yahan par we have discussed the questions of ethics paper number 4. You can use the content here. You can use the content which are mentioned in the PPT. At the same time, you can use these examples too. So thanks for watching, guys. Jai Hind.